What's up, meatbags? It's the often imitated, never duplicated Frog Tony, and today we're going to be talking about Sweet Baby Inc. Now, a few weeks ago, I got into a heated argument with a good friend of mine, Vito Giswaldi. Vito was saying how there's no proof, there's no evidence, there's nothing to support the idea that Sweet Baby Inc. is strong-arming the gaming community, the game developers. Nothing of that sort is going on. However, this week, an email from a AAA studio developer was actually sent to Dick Masterson, Vito's co-host on The Biggest Problem in the Universe. And I was able to get my hands on that email because I reached out to Mr. Masterson, and he agreed to share it with me. And you might have seen it if you watched the Dick show. You might have heard him talk about it. If not, I'm going to read it for you, and we're going to discuss what we got going on here. Now, we're going to skip all the pleasantries. We're going to skip all the boring parts of the email, the hellos, the highs, and we're going to get right to it. But before we do that, let me just remind you to like the video, share it with everybody because people need to hear this. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. All right, let's get to it. It says, how do they, consulting firms like Sweet Baby Inc., get suggestions in? It says consulting companies with the backing of ESG money and the federal government have been able to threaten compliance in a variety of ways. Keep in mind, Sweet Baby Inc. has less than 20 employees, so at first glance, their reach might seem limited. However, the tactics used involve activating developers within studios to force their incorporation into the industry. A while back, the head of SPI did a talk at GDC where she literally told game devs to, quote, threaten what would happen if they are included, to include how the impact on social media would impact the company. This is primarily how they work, through fear of labeling, both internally by the devs and externally by the customers. Thus, you may find that a small minority of game devs are actually activists of the woke agenda. This explanation leads into your next question. What happens if you deny or argue with their suggestions? Since it's small contingency that is drinking the Kool-Aid on this formula, you might wonder why it isn't squashed by more level heads. Well, it's a multi-threaded situation with lots of aspects. Now let's go into them. It says the needle has moved so much such that pushback on these ideas isn't the stand seen as offensive. Not openly embracing it is. By this, I mean having shifted so far that now they will not accept your silence on a matter, but rather your vocal agreement is required in order to appease them. See, silence is violence. We're going to stop right there for a second just and discuss what this means. What this means is that these activists are so enraged, so upset, and so determined to get their agenda pushed that if you are not clapping, enthusiastic, if you're not super excited about all the woke stuff they want to force into the games, well, then you are the problem. Just being okay with it, just agreeing, oh, yeah, no big deal, that is not even good enough. So don't even worry about pushing back. Don't even worry about saying, nah, I don't agree with that idea, because that, oh my God, that's a whole nother level. But just not being happy enough, not being enthusiastic enough, oh man, that is more than enough for them to get you labeled, get you pushed out of the industry, get you targeted, to be blacklisted. It is a regular North Korea situation going on over here. If you're not clapping for dear leader long enough, hard enough, and loud enough, well, then you're singled out as a dissident. It goes on to say, HR/DEI officers within the company will hire/fire, promote/demote based on adherence and support of the identity politics being pushed. They are infiltrated specifically into the areas of control within the studios such that they have complete dominance over the careers of developers. This is exactly what the head of Sweet Baby Inc. was talking about, where she gets people into the industry. She protects them, gets them into positions of power so they can make, quote unquote, changes to the industry. See, when you get them in positions like HR, DEI officers, they basically have you by the short and curlies. Step out of line, HR is getting you fired. They're getting you demoted. They're getting you put on lesser jobs. They're getting you blacklisted from the industry. They're telling other HR departments that you're a troublemaker. You're someone to not be trusted, not to be hired. And this is fear. This is a environment in which you have to go along with the woke agenda, whether you believe it or not, whether you want to or not, for fear not only losing your job, but never being able to work in the industry again. The third point says old guard have been forced out in large numbers, and the rest leave voluntarily as their numbers dwindle. So when you see others being pushed out, others being forced out, you see the writing on the wall, and you do your steps. You take whatever you need to do in order to peacefully exit the industry. So that way, at least you have a little face to save. At least you're not smeared. You're not destroyed. Your life is not ruined by these people. Right? Because when you see all your friends, all your buddies, all the people you've worked with for years and years being pushed out of the industry, your time is coming. And so rather than be labeled all kind of all kind of phobes and have your name dragged through the mud, you just put your head down and you gladly take that severance pay and walk out the door. All right, number 4, most of the people who just want to make fun games have families. Therefore, they are more likely to not be vocal for fear of losing their job. When the activists are usually single, childless, lonely individuals who have no such fear, they also promote the brain rot, quote, "we are a family here" ideals. This dynamic is what gives them leverage over the rest. This is the biggest factor I've seen. Those with families versus those who are lonely, talentless saps who dye their hair and change their pronouns and have an identity. We've been saying this over and over and over again. The idea that men will do what they need to do to protect their families, to feed their families. They will put their head down. They will suck it up. They will do whatever it is they need to do to keep their job, to keep their families fed, to keep their families happy. If that means being compliant to these woke standards, to these woke agendas, they'll do it begrudgingly, but they will do it. Whereas the other side, they got nothing to lose. They get in trouble. They get fired, they get replaced. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have a family to feed. They don't have people to take care of. They don't have people who are counting on them. So they're basically, able to do whatever they want with impunity because there is no repercussions. There's no fear of what might happen should they lose their job, should they be pushed out. And this has emboldened these woke activists in order to just be on a tear, to be crazy the way that we've seen them be. It says, why they get hired. This explains why they get hired. It says, primarily, this is due to them having worked themselves into positions of power, then able to hire/promote their identity politics. Consider this example. You have a team of developers and engineers who are largely apolitical. HR, being extremely activist in nature, begins to only hire devs that align with their politics. This is not an oversight occurrence, but happened over years. By control, those fulcrums, they will be able to change the dynamics. No longer do they hire based on skill set and value, but rather, does this person check a box that they will get us better clout, funding through ESG, etc. This process slowly eroded the makeup of teams. No one spoke out, primarily due to fear. They started in HR, then moved into the producer director roles, then set up DEI clubs, then infiltrated the devs themselves. Since they seized power, the PowerPoints within the studio, most CEOs and studio presidents end up losing control of their own company and didn't realize the threat until it was too late, and now they cannot act. It's like waiting until the infection has gone on too long to try and stop it. The poison has spread and cannot be stopped without amputating all the limbs. This dev goes on to give his 2 cents about the industry. Says, I joined this industry because I like developing. I like games. I wanted to make content that people enjoyed as escapism that I myself had enjoyed when younger. It was a dream to work in the industry, but I was far too late and arrived on the scene after the death spiral had already begun. The threat of being outed is so high now that many older devs are retiring or leaving for smaller indie studio work, since these companies cannot afford to subsidize the money pit of DEI. As they leave, more unskilled people are brought in that are hired for simply being a, quote, them. Development time goes towards DEI training, hours of meetings about how to fit woke agendas into the game. Gameplay is the last thing they focus on. It has become completely inverted, and the now silent majority of people opposed don't speak up because examples were made of the ones who did initially. Not just getting fired, but blacklisted from the industry. There is no recourse. The industry has been gutted and is dying. I will continue on as I have a large family to support, but I'm planning my exit as well. I know now there's an expiration on my ability to work here simply by being a cis white male. This won't end since the recent GAO report shows us they are working with the game companies for endeavors like this. And of course, that GAO report is the Government Accountability Office's report on extremism in gaming. We heard how the government is trying to root out those evil gamers. Now, there you have it. An actual AAA developer giving their thoughts, telling us the truth of the matter, telling us what is exactly going on within these game development studios. But of course, I know the woke people, they're going to say it's a lie. It's a fake. The email's a lie. This person doesn't exist. We can't verify who they are. They're anonymous. So obviously, this is all BS. This is, the quote unquote chuds just making things up. But I was told that if someone like this came forward, that they would believe it, that this would be believed, this would be used as evidence, proof would be accepted. So we're going to see. We're going to see how these people react. We're going to see how they actually behave now that they've been confronted with actual evidence, with somebody coming forward, a whistleblower, letting us know exactly what's going on in AAA development. But until next time, as always, love, peace, booty grease. We out.